on the iPad, half Zoom and half the agenda.
Well, I'm going to call this Lacey City Council meeting to order. It's March 19th at 6 p.m. And yes, we can hear you guys who are live. Matter of fact, we do have 2 council members who are remote. The rest of us are here this evening. And for the rest of us, if you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So before we get started, I want to recognize that we, the City of Lacey, are on the ancestral land of the tribal people of the Treaty of Missing Creek, including the Nisqually Indian Tribe and the Squax Indian Tribe. With that, can I get a motion to approve today's agenda and consent agenda?
Move to approve the agenda and consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Then all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Then that motion passes unanimously. So next up on our agenda is under public recognitions, it's the Lacey Youth Council report.
Testing. Does this work right?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, my name is Samuel Detarian, and I'm the representative of the Youth Council on the Commission of Equity. I'm from Timberline High School. Our school opened up the spring production of The Addams Family, which is a theater thing, and it's happening on March 15th. It ends at March 23rd, and you can get tickets on the website, the school website. Spring concerts have happened for choir, orchestra, and band. Timberline Band also participated in a PLU band clinic and participated in the CMEA festival today. ASB officer elections have taken place. Students voted and elected the new ASB officers for this year and next year. Spring sports have started. This includes track, baseball, fast pitch, golf, and girls tennis. Games and matches are just starting for the season. The college and career fair will be hosted at Timberline High School on March 7th. All North Thurston High School students are invited to attend. The last week of March is a student-led conference. Students will lead the conferences with their parent/guardian and advisor present. During the conference, they will finalize their 2024 and 2025 schedule, and seniors will present their high school and beyond plan. And to end things off, the Asian American and Pacific Islander Club got invited by the APISU organization that works across Washington and California.
Hello, Council. As always, get the same face every time, sorry. I'm Eliana, and I am the clerk, and this week I actually acted as mayor, so I appreciate your job a little bit more now, with Mayor Ryder.
Thank you.
And I am representing Pope John Paul II High School. Right. So this month has actually been kind of busy for JP2. We started our spring sports seasons, which are always a big hit because like a really big majority of our students are actually involved in sports. So that included baseball, fast pitch, and track and field. They have all had their first game in competition at this point, and the season seems to be off to a great start. Our track and field teams have always been very successful, so it's great to see where they're headed. Our drama club, myself included, also performed its dramatic reading of The War of the Worlds, and we all had a lot of fun doing it, and our audience really enjoyed it. We have also been celebrating Women's History Month, so for those of you that don't know, March is Women's History Month. I've written profiles on influential women of history and the present, and they have been said in the morning announcements very often. And I've also been given the opportunity to give a presentation to our Multicultural Club next week on feminism and the history of women's rights. This week is actually gearing up to be very busy. I think yesterday was my only not busy day. Tomorrow, our juniors and seniors, myself included, are heading out into the woods for our junior retreat, which will continue through the rest of the week. And it promises to be a wonderful time of community building and faith formation. We've also just started our annual tuna drive led by the National Honor Society, of which I'm a member. We do a class competition to spice things up, and we are already off to a very competitive start. I really want to beat the seniors. They've been talking a lot of smack. This fundraiser goes directly to All Kids Win. Speaking of fundraisers, we are also doing a joint event with Mod Pizza next week to support our FBLA team, which has 18 members, myself included, going to the state competition next month. Okay, so some of you may know that Pope John Paul II is a Catholic school. So as Catholics, we are in the middle of the Lenten season. That's a time of fasting and prayer and reflection in the preparation for Easter. Our student-led campus ministry team has been doing daily reflections after lunch for our students to center and focus on God's presence in our lives. To end on the more recreational side, we also had our Spring Fling Tolo dance at the beginning of the month, and that was really fun. We had lots of laughs, lots of great pictures, and lots of silly dances. Yeah, we were busy. Plus, we still go to class, so it's a lot. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Quick question before you go. Which Mod Pizza are you guys doing your fundraiser at?
Oh, that's
You know?
a fantastic
Because there's actually a couple
question.
of them in Lacey. And
There
I think
are.
3 now, actually.
Yeah, that is a fantastic question. I think it's the first one that got built in Lacey.
So the one on Yelm Highway.
I believe so, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Hey, also, thank you for supporting All Kids Win. That's awesome.
We always do, with both our tuna drive and our chili drive, so.
Hello, my name's Rory Line. I'm also from Timberline High School, and I will be doing the Lacey Youth Council report. As of right now, we are focusing on our presentations for our joint session, with the Commission of Equity, and this will occur on Monday, April 22nd. We recently had our youth summit on Saturday, as some of you or all of you might know about. We have been planning that for a few meetings now, and it was quite successful especially for our first summit. We had around 35 people show up, which includes youths and parents. And we had multiple vendors and 2 presenters. The Youth Council will also be preparing for the overview of the Youth Summit for the joint session that we have with the City of Lacey Council. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That was great. So next on our agenda under public recognitions and presentation is a recognition of service for Nancy Clausen, where better known as, for some of us, as Nancy Peterson. So Nancy has been a pillar and a longtime leader in our community. During her time on council, among many other issues, she was one of the key drivers for realizing the vision of the regional athletic complex, and instrumental in the formation of the Public Facilities District, representing Lacey's interest during that formation of the interlocal agreement. And it's that Public Facilities District that funds the RAC. So after her time on the council, she served on the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District Board for the past 12 years, reviewing the financial statements and issuing the annual report. She's ensuring that the use of the sales tax revenue was used in accordance with the PFD interlocal agreement, and also ensuring the public dollars were spent responsibly towards their intended use. So Nancy has always looked out for the best interests of our Lacey community, and has been instrumental leader in Champion. And so she's been serving on the Capital Area Regional Public Facilities District, like I said, from 2012 to 2024, served as president from 2018 to through 2023. Again, they meet annually to review the financial statements. And but prior to that, Nancy served on Lacey City Council as a council member from 1993 to 2007. She served as the mayor from 96 to 99, the deputy mayor 2004 to 2005, and 2007. And she actually was on the planning commission before that, from 1986 to 1992, serving as a chair from 1989 to 1992. All that being said, Nancy has been giving back to this community for, 38 years, and has always been someone I've tremendously respected, because we are here today because of the efforts of people like Nancy, and it's my honor to be able to present you with this Distinguished Public Service Award. This one specifically for your time on the Capital Areas Regional Public Facilities District from 2012 to 2024.
Thank you
So
very
thank you.
much.
You want to say a few words?
I've loved working for Lacey and with all the staff at Lacey. It's just been a wonderful experience over all the years. This serving on the facilities board was great because I was instrumental in getting our RAC and also the Hands-on Children's Museum. So it was nice to watch how the money flowed and to hear annual reports about how those projects are doing, and they're both wonderful projects for the community. So, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you, Nancy. So next, we have our public comment period. We don't have anyone who signed up, pre-registered, or signed up tonight. But if there's anyone wishing to address this council, now's the time. Okay, seeing none. Next, we'll go on to our proclamations. And our first proclamation is Transgender Day of Visibility. And we'll get started with Nick.
City of Lacey official proclamation. Whereas Transgender Day of Visibility was founded in 2009 by Rachel Crandall to acknowledge and celebrate transgender individuals and communities, including recognizing the events at Stonewall Inn in 1969, led by transgender women of color and other courageous leaders who helped empower and energize activism around the world in a unified voice of outcry against violence towards these communities and in support of their inalienable rights. And
whereas organizations around the world recognize Transgender Visibility Day to honor the accomplishments, resiliency, and countless contributions of transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary individuals, while raising awareness of the work still needed to eliminate discrimination and harassment based on gender identity, transgender status, and gender dysphoria. And
whereas we celebrate the countless accomplishments of Americans that are transgender Americans, including sharing their stories in books and magazines, serving in the military, building thriving businesses, raising families, and much more. And
You're up, Mike.
Mr. Stedman?
So on mine, it says Greenstein and then Stedman. So I think it's, whereas despite this progress, Americans who are transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary continue to face discrimination, barriers to opportunity, harassment, and the possibilities of violence, particularly women and girls of color, per the U.S. Department of Justice, and the rate of violent victimization against persons who are transgender were 2.5 times the rate among persons who are cisgender. And
Whereas on this day and every day, the City of Lacey stands with our community members who are transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary for dignity and equal rights, to build inclusive and healing spaces, and to protect and defend those who are most vulnerable. And
whereas the Lacey City Council is committed to creating a community where all are welcome, safe, feel fully accepted and embraced, respected, and can live openly in an authentic and accurate representation of who they are, free of violence, harassment, and discrimination. And
now, therefore, I, Andy Ryder, Mayor of the City of Lacey, on behalf of the Lacey City Council, do hereby proclaim March 31st, 2024 as Transgender Day of Visibility in the city of Lacey. I encourage all community members to celebrate and respect the lives and voices of individuals who are transgender, gender nonconforming, and non-binary, and to work towards eliminating violence and discrimination in all forms. Signed by myself, Mayor Andy Ryder, on today's date. Here's the proclamation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
Yes.
Want to say a few words?
I do, yes. Can everybody hear me? All right, ladies and gentlemen, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. My name is Lucas Miller. I am a board member of PFLAG Olympia, an organization that provides support, education, and advocacy for LGBTQ plus people, their friends, family, and allies. I can tell you that in the last year, our chapter has received calls from parents of transgender youth in red states desperate to move here to Washington so that their children can get the life-saving health care that they can no longer access in many of those states. I would just like to say that at a time when forces bent on destroying our democracy use our community as a pawn in their quest for power, at a time when transgender Americans are made to feel like refugees in their own country, it can be hard to find places of hope and sanctuary. I moved to Washington 20 years ago and started my gender transition, and I have experienced, really nothing but welcome and very positive things since I've been here. So I want to thank this council and say that when a public body like this stands up and commits to defend a small and embattled minority like ours, it means a lot. It says a lot, and it is probably one of the most important ways in which we can support everybody's, right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you. So next on our agenda is resolutions, and we'll start with Resolution 1143, the Community and Economic Development Fee Schedule Update.
Good evening, Council. I'm here tonight to present a resolution that would update our fee schedule in the Community and Economic Development Department. As you know from the exit interview with the Auditor's Office, we had some issues come up or were identified during the last audit. And the part of the solution, a big part of the solution, is simplifying the fee schedule so we can be easier to implement through our new software, easier to calculate by the people who are doing it, and easier to audit and confirm that the fees are correct through reporting and whatnot. So the intent back in 2018, the council adopted the current fee schedule, which was based on a tremendous amount of work to try to tie the fees to the actual cost, not the full cost, but a percentage of the cost associated with the different types of permit processes. That the work, while great, it included an inflator tied to the cost of labor within the city. So it's kept current over the years, but we've drifted away from it a little bit, and that was pointed out in the audit. There's no one smoking gun with the development of the drift. It has to do with a number of things, including, George Smith, who implemented it. It's not with the city anymore. The person who was maintaining it got pulled into the track it conversion, and so there was a big disconnect between myself, who kind of picked it up after Marcy left to implement, and I had no history with it. So, and finally, we had some issues with the auditor's office, not in what the fees actually were, but being able to explain them because of the change in software from Naviline to Trackit. So I just wasn't able to get in and understand Trackit enough to be able to tell the auditor, this is why this happened this way. So before you tonight is that simplified, streamlined fee schedule. I didn't come at this with the intent of changing any fees up or down, but really reflect what was intended back in 2018. And so I basically recalculated everything from that original fee schedule and then kind of combined some fees. And where one of our biggest issues is in things like plumbing fixtures and mechanical fixtures. We had assigned a different value for the inspections and the permits for each of those, which, as you can imagine, is way too many variables in a software system to do. So the intent was to make the same. The only real change that we made in the actual what the fees should be, some of them went down because over the years the fire permits somehow got inflated above what would have been in the inflation area, so those are lower than they were under the existing schedule. And then where the number of fixtures plays into it, I just took the average of those. So some of them will be slightly higher, others will be slightly lower. The overall cost should be the same because it does average out as we implement this stuff. So with that, I would answer any questions and encourage the council to look at the options for tonight, which is one, adopt the fee schedule. The second is to not adopt the revised schedule. I believe that this is Troy's top choice, but I'm just guessing. And the third is to give us some direction to go back and make some changes and bring it back. So be happy to answer any questions.
That's a motion. Go ahead.
No questions?
Go ahead. Question first.
So the only thing that I saw that was dramatically different was the new section here, number 9 on the resolution, talking about the appeal can be waived by city council.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Thank you. I forgot about that. Yeah,
that's a big one.
that was something we added in as kind of a safety valve for the appeals. Our appeal fee is, I think it's $2,500, which doesn't even cover the costs associated with having the hearing and all that. But it is designed to make, have people have some skin in the game when they take the step to appeal a process, which then creates a public hearing requirement. But we recognize that there are situations out there that may be a barrier to justice and a financial burden on, I think we called out nonprofits specifically for that one. So, it was language similar to what we had in Yelm, so just thought it was a good time to build that safety valve in so we have some, we don't create issues that become a barrier to justice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stedman, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just noticed it's updating here, but I can go off memory. The shoreline master plan fee is like 7,000 something, and the wetland is 4,000. It's still refreshing, so I don't know exactly what it says, but I'm just wondering, why is that? Here it goes. Yeah, so it's the fee structure here.
Is that the update, the program?
It's a shoreline master program amendment.
Yeah, so the shoreline master program amendment is that fee is $71.99, and the wetlands review quasi judicial is $41.93. They seem pretty similar to me. Is there a reason why? I mean, it seems like they should both be $41.93, or they should both be $71.99.
Well, one of them is actually a development permit. The wetland development permit is a permit that would go to the hearings examiner. The shoreline master program update is actually a legislative process that updates the master program itself. So it's similar to a comp plan amendment or a development code amendment.
Yes. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
obviously it's the amount of time, since all these are supposed to be based on a certain percentage of how much time our staff has taken. I think we need we should obviously pass this, but I do have some comments I would like to make after a motion's made. Is there a motion?
Yes, I would move that we adopt Resolution 1143.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 1143, revising the Lacey fee schedule as relates to services provided by the Community and Economic Development Department. Discussion. Councilmember?
Yeah, I'm having, I guess the only area that I'm struggling with a bit here, because the fees really, I mean, this is really more cleaning things up. We're not changing the fees, so I don't have any real heartburn there. I'm struggling a little bit with the section that I had asked a question about, the appeal to waive the fees by council. It just seems very vague. So the appeal will create a financial hardship. What's the definition? Who's deciding that? What documentation? You know, how are we deciding on, how is especially since it's council making this decision, how are we making that decision? That whole section I have some issues with. I'm just not sure that I'm ready to add that
Make sure your
section.
mic's on.
Oh, I'm sorry. Apologize. I'm just not sure that I'm comfortable adding that at this point before getting a lot more information. I just don't feel like we have enough information at this point to add that. I'm not opposed to the idea conceptually. I just want to know more before we add that. And I would, I guess, propose that we amend
The motion?
the motion to remove that part for further discussion. I just don't think we have enough information yet.
Is there? City Manager?
And if the council would like to do that, we can always wrap that future discussion up into another evaluation of the fee ordinance, an update to reflect what the fees are. The mayor and I had some conversations earlier this week about, it's been in 2018 when these were adopted. At some point you need to do back and review those, and that'd be an opportunity to look at what are those issues we can work out with related to appeal fees and make it accessible.
So procedurally, I should make a motion probably?
Yeah, and I would agree. We haven't talked, but yeah, I was right there with you. I've had this conversation. Actually, when we passed these fees in 2018, it was quite a process for the people who were on council.
Yep.
And we kept coming back like 2-3 different times before we got to a place where we felt comfortable. When we passed this ordinance in 2018, we said we wanted like a 5-year check back to see where we were at in this fee schedule compared again to our surrounding communities, and have a check back in and see if everything still feels right. And we haven't had that check back yet. 5 years have gone by and we didn't have it. Now I understand things got lost, and looking at the ordinance, I was kind of surprised to see that 5-year check back wasn't actually in the ordinance that we originally passed. I thought it was. I thought we specifically said we were going to check back in 5 years.
Being the other one that was here with you at the time, I don't remember.
But it didn't happen, and so there's going to be some work that needs to happen when it comes to this, regardless, because when we passed these, some of the fees we're collecting at 60% of staff time. Some of these fees we're collecting at less.
Right.
Sooner or later, I've been talking for a long time about actually doing. Having permits run through the city from our UGA, right? And we've talked about looking at the Martin Way corridor first, processing those permits first. I think any new construction, any new housing should come through the city of Lacey. Sooner or later, we're going to need to know exactly what that's going to cost, because we'll have to collect 100% of those fees at that point, right? There's a benefit of being in the city of Lacey, and that is reflected in these fees. I'm more than happy to have our permit, issue permits, but we need to be able to collect 100% of that of the cost at that point. So we'll need to go back and see what is what. And to tell you the truth, I think we've lost track of where we're collecting the fees at under this permit. All that long time, that knowledge that George had is now gone. And so we're going to have to go back and re-examine this at some point. We should already have the check back already about where we're at, and we don't have it yet. So yeah.
But I think Councilor Vasquez has a point too.
I think we have a motion on the floor, so we'll have to address that motion, I think, before we can do a different motion. But I also wanted to just ask, I understand that the purpose of this adjustment is not to change fees up or down, but did it result in any significant adjustments up or down when we were just leveling things out, basically, to stick to what we said we were going to do back in 2018?
The two places where it changed, and I don't think, one of them is probably not significant. The fire alarm permits went down significantly because we have been, someplace the inflator got screwed up in the past. Yeah, so when I ran it back from 2018, they're actually lower than they were under the existing code. The only other place where there was any real change is when we averaged, like on the fixtures. And, you know, I couldn't tell you because we really haven't been calculating it that way. I couldn't tell you if it would result in a difference, but I can tell you it would be insignificant because those are such small fees. We're talking about $45 to $90 per fixture versus the building permit itself, which can be, you know, much more significant. So
When I want to say I do appreciate how transparent and simplified this new process is because it's tied to either the CPI or whatever the increase is in the collective bargaining agreement for this staff. So that's very understandable in a way that I think the previous schedule wasn't.
And you'll notice, if I can add one more thing real quick, in the numbered, you know, conditions of the resolution, that's all documentation that, you know, we kind of knew why that we were doing it that way, but the auditor's office likes to see it in writing. So it took quite a bit of time to really show the work and try to make sure that the next auditor can see the actual intent of the council written down in black and white.
But we have to vote on this one
No,
first.
you can make a motion to amend it then.
You can amend from here.
Councilmember Dunning?
Yeah, I just had two quick questions, kind of expand on what Lenny was saying, since I was not here during the process. Are appeals done on any level currently? And then two, what is the thought or reasoning behind making the council the decision maker on those appeals in this format?
So the appeals would be any staff administrative decision, and those would go to the hearing examiner. Any appeal of the hearing examiner decision would go to the courts through the Land Use Petition Act process, and any fees associated with that would be paid to the courts and established by the courts. So this would only be of a staff decision, either administrative permit, an interpretation, something like that, that then would go to the hearing examiner at a public hearing. And then the second part is when I copied my language from Yelm, we had a strong mayor form of government back there, so that kind of thing was in the council. I didn't really think it through on the different, you know, the council manager form of government, so.
Okay, Councilmember?
Just for clarity, so I'm going to vote no on this motion, but I will immediately then make another motion to just make an amendment to this.
Yeah. Yeah, I will be voting no on this as well. I mean, we could make an amendment to this motion, but I think it'll be cleaner if we just vote this down and make another motion.
If the council knows exactly, of course, what motion or what amendment they would want to make, they could certainly do that. If the goal is to discuss this with staff, we can bring it forward at a future time with no motion,
Well,
just a direction.
it's number 9 in the resolution, so I'm for it either way. If you want to vote this down or if you want to do it. Councilmember?
Well, procedurally, we have a motion
And it says
and then
Second.
a move to amend the motion. So I think we have
There's
to.
not second on the motion to move it, so there's only one motion on the floor right now.
Okay, all right. All right. Well, yeah, I'd like to call the question, and I also will vote against my own motion. But because, I share some of the concerns about consistency and then being very specific about how we make these judgments when we are to waive fees, because I want it to be fair to everybody.
I agree. Is there any other discussion? Then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. All opposed say no.
No.
Oh,
No.
So the motion fails.
Excuse me, I meant nay, sorry.
So the motion does fail. So
I would make,
Does that move, we can go back into Q&A because there's.
well, let me put another motion on the floor
Okay.
first, I think, and then you do the Q&A, right? So I would move to amend this resolution to remove number 9
of the resolution.
of the resolution. So I would move to approve Resolution 1143, removing number 9 in its entirety.
second.
Yep. There's a motion and a second to accept this resolution, striking number 9, which is the section that says the fee for filing an appeal can be waived by the city council when the appellant can show the following. Is there any other discussion? Council member?
I've got questions about doing that. I mean, what happens if we approve this tonight and then somebody comes in tomorrow wanting fees waived?
Well, because we're striking, the motion is striking this down, removing number 9, so it doesn't exist.
It's not an option.
Well,
It doesn't exist in the current form either.
Right.
Doesn't exist in the current form either.
all right, so it wouldn't limit our ability to address somebody's application that came in?
No, so what this, again, specifically was doing was it would be allowing council, because it's $2,500 if someone goes through the process, and now right, and they want to appeal it, it's $2,500. And what this would have done is we could have waived that $2,500 under these.
That's
Right.
kind of not what I was talking about,
Okay.
but Rick?
And maybe I misunderstood as well, but there are other elements in this resolution under number 10. If somebody brings an appeal and the hearing examiner finds that they were correct in their appeal, that the hearing examiner has the authority to refund their appeal fees that they applied. So if the city was found in error and those type of things. And then also somebody files an appeal and he decides later to settle and waive it, that gives the director of community economic development the authority to refund a portion of those fees so that it doesn't go clear to the hearing. And there's some other safeguards, but they're more direct to the
Right.
actions being taken.
Yeah, I'm actually
Okay.
fine with those two, but I mean.
And then going forward, if we look at and reevaluate our fee schedule sometime either later this year or into 2025, we can take a look at what other options there are for that appeal fee at $2,500, if it's a lower value, or if there's more defined ways for that fee to be addressed and make it accessible for all.
Okay.
Councilmember Steven?
Thank you, Mayor. I like this because when staff has to explain the fee structure, it's a lot easier for them. Simplifies, like Councilmember Vasquez was saying. This is a good improvement.
Okay, Councilmember Vasquez?
I am very interested in the future, us having a process to review requests for, waiving the fee. I think, to your point, it would be nice to know how we measure like financial eligibility for that waiver. So I look forward to us having this discussion in the future when we have a little bit more detail or policy on that.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, and it's time to come back and take a look at this and have an explanation of why we got to these fees, and does it still make sense? That we've had this escalator that's gone up, but it's gone up in some cases, but we've lowered it in others. I mean, I don't even remember that entire formula now. That's why we requested at the time to come back and review all this to make sure we're still where we need to be in the market as well compared to other jurisdictions, so on and so forth. So I was thinking about this earlier. I was going to put a time frame on when I want that to come back by. I won't go that far, but I do say I would like this to be a priority, that we take a look at this, and especially if we're going to consider this other process of possibly lowering the fees. We need to get on that, I think, sooner than later. So, Councilmember Dunning?
Yes, so I was just kind of going on the point that you were just making, and obviously this seemed like it slipped through the cracks, and a 5-year thing didn't happen. I would actually be more in favor of having some sort of language defining a timeline to review, just to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it should be reviewed every 5 years, but at some point we're going to need to go back and review these fees and everything, and maybe enter this new section. I'll feel comfortable at that time putting a time period of when these should be reviewed again. But until we get to that point, I think we should look at all that first, and then once the new ordinance comes forward, then I'd feel more comfortable putting it in a resolution.
And we would look at probably doing this work going into 2025, because we don't have the staff resources in-house to do this level of work. So we may need to look for some consultant help, which we will want to put into the budget process for 2024, and look at a 2025 potential horizon for having the fee evaluation.
I had a quick question.
Okay, good.
on the Exhibit A, the construction permit fees, it shows on there tiny home ADU is at 80%. And what defines a tiny home? Is it a square footage amount?
It is. We
Under
actually,
1,500 square feet.
Under 15?
Under 1,500 square feet.
Okay, that's what I thought I saw too.
excuse me.
Sorry.
The ADU, yeah, the ADU is, excuse me, tiny home is under 1,500, but the tiny home is actually something a little bit different. So that, it's clarified in the actual resolution itself what those thresholds are for each of the lower plan reviews.
And I only bring it up because, you know, in the city and the county, we're low on inventory, and we're always talking, well, I don't know if we're always talking about it, but it seems as if we need to incentivize, you know, building and construction. I know that we have, you know, 2,400 units in the pipe, and 300 of them are single family, and like 2,100 are multi. But at the same time, you know, we've become this, you know, $500,000 to get in community if you want to buy here, and if you don't have $500,000, and you can go live somewhere else, and that. I don't know how we're going to get to some of the smaller units, is what I'm saying. And
Well, our pre-approved accessory dwelling unit program is becoming quite popular and grows every year. So that is actually a no plan review fee because it's already been reviewed and approved.
I actually just had a long conversation with the city manager, specifically looking at these fees and bringing up the same questions you have. And I think I brought this up before, where I've talked about maybe extending our pre-approved plans to up to a tiny home level, so under 1,500 square feet. That is an idea that we're still trying to flesh out and how that would work. We're sort of working on it behind the scenes. Once we sort of flesh that out, we'll come back to the council with a recommendation on what that would look going forward. We're just not quite there yet, but I'm feeling the same way as you are, is how can we make it as easy and as inexpensive as possible to build more affordable housing? And I think we could do it under that 1,500 square foot threshold with a pre-approved plan, very much like we do with our ADUs. We're just not quite there yet.
Correct. And I just want to remind the council, too, we're going to be tackling and working on these issues with Vanessa and the Community Economic Development team and the comp plan update. And one of the major focuses is housing and housing strategies. If you recall, when we move forward on implementing the ADU plan, the pre-approved plan program, that was based off of policies that were established in the affordable housing strategy the council adopted in 2017. So to expand that, we want to go through this process and make sure we have the policy in place and the public benefit in place and the strategy for how that would be implemented and built into the work program as far as the comp plan update.
I'm kind of in favor of, you know, houses and just smaller units, because, you know, it's just not affordable for a lot of people, even if you have, you know, two people working, you know, in this balloons prices to, you know, because the Growth Management Act says one thing. You know, you guys need to infill, you guys need to make it more walkable, have lower price units, but the cost to build is continually on the rise. And so here we are in the middle.
Well, I think that the time to have those conversations is when these come back before us, and we'll discuss those fees at that point.
And one key part of this is the housing allocation study, where we have new parameters under the Growth Management Act that was recently adopted by the legislature to look at not just housing units but looking at specific categories of housing units, the 0 to 40, and figure out where we're missing and where the gaps are, so we can develop strategies to build those other lower income housing or affordable housings.
I appreciate you guys filling all that in. And I guess the point that I'm getting to is 80% enough of an incentive, or is that something that we can work on to help people out?
Well, I think that's going to require a larger conversation, and so. Councilmember Consent.
The only thing I would add is it, and I know the workload is already heavy on staff, is there any way to do this sooner than 25? I mean, I get it if there's not. And the only reason I say it is, we did this in 2018, so 5 years really expired last year. Now we're going to be moving closer to like 7-8 years by the time we actually are looking at this.
I agree. It's just a matter of putting we can look at maybe, as we go into the next couple of months, we can identify if there are some funds available for this year to do a budget amendment. But I also want to look at and consult with Vanessa and what they can do in terms of project management as well. And I think Vanessa was going to want to say something.
Oh, good evening. I was going to jump in back to the housing. I just wanted to let you all know, we will have lots of housing discussions before this council through the course of the year with the comprehensive plan update. So we'll have lots of opportunity to have that conversation. But yeah, in terms of the fee schedule, we'll have to talk about finding that capacity as we have a lot of effort before us as it comes to the comprehensive plan update and a number of actually state legislation that's resulting in mandates in terms of additional updates to our code that we will be working on throughout this year. The good news is we do have some grant funding from the Department of Commerce to help with some of that. So we are grateful to be able to move that forwards as well.
Thank you.
I had the exact same concern, and trust me, we're pushing as fast as we can. And I did say, let's come back and have some more conversations, because I'm not quite okay with 25 either. But trust me, we're working on it. That's all I can say. Is there any other discussion? Then there's a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 1143, the Community and Economic Development Fee Schedule, striking out Resolution number 9. All those in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries.
Thank you so much, Council.
Thank you, Grant.
So next up is Resolution 1144, the Thurston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan Annex.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Ed Taylor. I'm the Emergency Management and Safety Coordinator for the city. We're here tonight, this evening, to ask the council to adopt the hazard mitigation plans by resolution. First off, I would like to explain a little about what the hazard mitigation planning is and why it's beneficial to the city of Lacey. So, see if I can work this. Okay. So local governments engage in hazard mitigation plannings to identify the risks and vulnerabilities from natural disasters and to develop long-term strategies for protecting people and property from future hazard events. So we're trying to look at things like when we do hazard mitigation planning, we're trying to look at things like reducing loss of life and property and reduce the impact of the disaster. We are part of the Thurston County Region's Hazard Mitigation Planning Workshop, which consists of the county, city members, school districts, fire districts, special purpose districts, colleges, and utility and transportation members. So this hazard mitigation planning work group was put together back in 2022. It covers all of the Thurston regions, and we have a Thurston Region Hazard Mitigation, or it is led by Paul Brewster of Thurston County Region, or Thurston Regional Planning Council. This plan is the 4th planning cycle the region has been involved in. So we've been involved in with them throughout the 4 planning cycles as a city. The city hazard mitigation planning team is made up of 15 city employees, members of different departments. They've all helped guide us through the process with the regional hazard mitigation plan and the city of Lacey's annex to the hazard mitigation plan. Hazard mitigation planning, like I mentioned before, provides a framework for communities to alleviate the impacts of natural hazards. And we have mitigation strategies consist of goals, policies, and initiatives. So 9 goals that the team identified, the hazard mitigation team identified, was to protect life, protect infrastructure, protect property, protect the environment, sustain the economy, build community support, expand understanding of hazards, and implement effective mitigation strategies and increase public awareness. So our biggest thing with hazard mitigation planning is to protect people, and property in our communities from the future hazard events. Okay, so why do we have to do hazard mitigation planning? So FEMA says that if we want to ascertain or get any federal mitigation assistance grants, that we must have a hazard mitigation plan in place. And that needs to be updated every 5 years. And I said we started in 2022. We're actually a year late. So our hazard mitigation plan is 1 year out of date already. So right as we sit right now, we are not eligible for any hazard mitigation grants or any federal grants. So that's why we're kind of bringing that to you today, so we can get back in compliance with FEMA so we can be eligible for those grants. So the plans, that I've been talking about, one of them is the regional plan. It's the 4th addition to the hazard mitigation plan. It covers the entire Thurston County region. The second one, which is our City of Lacey Annex, is one our team put together, and it covers the city's risks and vulnerabilities and within the city and the UGA, the urban growth area. So going to the regional plan, there was addressed 9 hazards that affected the region, that are affecting the region. So those hazards are dam failure, earthquake, flood, landslide, sea level rise, severe weather, tsunami, volcanic lahar, which also includes ash that might come to the area, and then wildfire. So those, what we looked at through those was the risk and vulnerabilities of each area through the population and through the areas of the properties. There were actually, and this slide, I apologize, is wrong. I noticed it at the last minute. There is 12 mitigation initiatives. So if you've actually read the regional plan, we came up with 12 mitigation initiatives in 5 areas. The 5 areas cover public outreach and information. There was one initiative that covers in the public outreach and information. There was 4 initiatives that fall under the plan coordination and implementation. There's 3 that comes under data collection and mapping. So those initiatives cover strategies in mapping and data collection. 1 in hazard preparedness, and then 1 in critical facility strengthening. And they're all listed in there. I'm not going to go through them all. But the way they were prioritized and scored by with a benefit cost review criteria. So we took, and they were scored ranging from high importance as 5 to down to no benefit down to 0. So there was actually 5, medium was 3, low is 1. So we scored those initiatives, and then we placed a value on them to see how important they were and where they fell on our analysis. So with the city's annex, we did the same thing. But with it, we only have 6 specific hazards. So when we put a annex together, we look at the city by itself instead of looking at the whole region. We take it down. And with the City of Lacey, we found that the biggest things were our hazards that we need to worry about: earthquake, flood, which is very low, landslide, severe weather. We rated it into volcanic hazards because we don't really have a lahar issue except for our critical infrastructure. We have some wells down in the Nisqually Valley. So we're more looking at volcanic hazards. That's ash that may fall in the area, and then wildfire, of course. We, as the city employees, came up with 25 initiatives, mitigation initiatives or strategies, some of which were from the last period that did not get done because I got to tell you, COVID really played a big part of us not getting to some of our initiatives because our emergency management safety coordinator and others were spending so much time with COVID things that some of these initiatives didn't really get done. So, but we have 25 now. Of that, 4 of them are in public outreach and education and information. So that's where I'd go out and do public outreach and give people information about disasters and tell them, you know, do the outreach for that. We have 2 in the data collection and mapping, 1 in development regulations, 8 in hazard preparedness, 8 in hazard damage reduction, and then we added another one for critical facilities retrofit, replacement and retrofit. That wasn't in the regional plan, but we have a few critical facilities, as in our water reservoirs, that need updating, and there were a couple other things we identified. Again, we scored those all ranging with the cost-benefit review criteria across the 9 categories, and we came up, and we scored them from high to low, from 5 to 0. So the next steps, what we're asking here. So the next steps is we're asking to adopt the resolutions, both the hazard mitigation plans, because they must be viewed in concert. The regional plan and the annex go hand in hand. The 4th edition hazard mitigations plan to Thurston County region, or the Thurston region, sorry, has been reviewed and approved by FEMA. Our City of Lacey's annex has been reviewed by the state, but it just got sent to FEMA. We're asking for early adoption because what happens is we have to, once FEMA accepts it or approves it, then we have to come to council and ask for adoption before we can actually go back and get any funds. So we're asking a little bit early on this to adopt the resolution on FEMA's approval, so that when we get the approval, and we think that's going to be coming most any time, we're probably 15, maybe 20 days out, but when that comes, we already have an adoption and we can get the funds needed we've got 1 right now that is pending, a brick grant that's pending, that we just got to wait to get our hazard mitigation plan in place before we can be approved. And the other one is one that the city assistant manager is working on. She needs a letter back, but until we can get that hazard mitigation plan approved, we can't get that letter. So that's what we're asking for in this resolution. And I would just ask if you guys have any questions or comments or.
Can I get a motion, please?
Yeah, I would move to approve Resolution 1144, adopting the 4th edition hazard mitigation plan for Thurston Region and the City of Lacey's annex to said plan.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So legally, there's no risk to the city if we go ahead and adopt this and then wait for our FEMA approval. That's what I'm hearing.
We need to adopt this so we can get FEMA approval, yes.
No, there's procedurally, that's fine.
And it sounds like this is a gate for us to access money to mitigate the risks we've identified in this report.
That's one of the things that FEMA has specified, is that we can approve it, but it's got to be adopted by council by your city council or your governing agency before it can become final. So that's just one of the criteria that we have to meet before we can meet any of those grants.
Is there any other questions?
Well, just a comment. I'd really like to thank you. This is a major undertaking and
Yeah, it was.
a lot of hard work, so thank
you.
you for that.
Yeah, and it looks like, going through the plan, it's earthquake and wildfires are the 2 really biggest risks that we need to take a look at that will have the biggest impact on our residents here in Lacey.
That and the storm. I mean, the
Yes.
storm, the severe weather is the one that we end up dealing with public assistant grants the most, just because it's the most that happens here. But if we were to have a big event, it's going to be earthquake or fire, most definitely.
Okay, is there any discussion? Then it's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 1144, the Thurston Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan and Plan Annex. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's see. Next up is the Resolution 1145, the Human Services Grant Program.
Yay.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Michelle Chavez, and I am the Human Services Coordinator for the City of Lacey. What you have before you in the staff report tonight is an update on the Human Services Grant Program. We did go into a more detailed presentation last week at the work session on Tuesday and received a lot of really great feedback from the council. So the resolution outlines basically establishing a human services work group for the City of Lacey, because as you know, the City of Lacey has allocated $300,000 in their annual 2024 budget to offer up competitive grants to the community-based agencies. So what I presented on last week was basically what's in your staff report, an overview of 4 key areas: research and development findings, which is in your report, a needs assessment overview, what the work group could look like, which is in your resolution, and then 2024 program recommendations for the Human Services Grant Program. We did get feedback that the council really values their input in applications, and they would like to do a joint meeting with the work group if the work group is established. So we've amended our timeline to include a special joint work session in July of this summer so that the council and the work group can meet together to review applications from potential interested parties. So again, we're recommending option number 1, which is to pass the resolution 1145 to establish the Human Services Work Group. That is going to help us conduct a human services needs assessment and proceed with the 2024 Human Services Grant Program priorities as outlined in the staff report. So you do have that option before you. You also have an option not to adopt the resolution and give staff direction to make changes, come back at a future meeting, or there could be some other option not listed in the report. So I open it up to questions.
Can I get a motion?
I would move adoption of Resolution 1145, Lacey City Council creating a temporary ad hoc human services work group.
Second.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt Resolution 1145, or the Human Services Work Group. Any more discussion? Councilmember.
Just wanted to say thank you for, I think we had a really good conversation on this topic at our work session last week. So thank you for incorporating some of those changes that we asked for and having us more involved directly in that process.
Anything else? Okay. Well, there's been a motion and a second to adopt Resolution 1145. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, under the mayor's report, I just have one item. Camber Good is served 1 term, and she's interested in serving a 2nd term on the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Board. So it's my motion that we reappoint Camber Good to the Parks, Culture, and Recreation Board.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion.
Abstain.
Then that motion unanimously carries. Then we'll go on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. We have a couple of items on the city manager's report. The first item, I want to invite up Peter Brooks, our water resources manager. He's going to give a brief overview of the Tommy Sewer and Water Improvements Project in bid award. This is a utility local improvement district that beginning in 2022, and we're now in the final stages with the construction bid award. So I'll turn it over to Peter to give a little bit more of a background on it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. So before you tonight, we have a bid award, short presentation to go through with you. Okay, so this bid award essentially accomplishes the work that is part of the Tolmy Park ULID 25. So if you'll recall, with Tolmy Park, they have an on-site septic system. It's actually 3 little systems with drain fields, 3 drain fields, but it's your typical septic tank in the front, effluent flows to a drain field, sort of large on-site system. There's 47 parcels in the system, and the on-site system's failing. In 2021, they reached out to the city and said, can you help us? Maybe we're interested in ULID, tell us more about our options. We had that conversation. And then in February of 22, we had the ULID formation hearing, and the project got going. City Council pledged $2 million towards the cost. It's approximately a $3 million project. Council pledged $2 million because it abates groundwater and shallow surface water pollution. And furthermore, we've worked with LOT because we have programs through LOT where people who are on septic and connect to city sewer can get a reduction, 50% reduction. If they're like a hardship case, low income senior, something of that sort, they can get a 75% reduction. But LOT's granted us a special program, a special allotment for this ULID for a 50% reduction in the lot connection charge. So here's the timeline I just kind of walked through. 21, they reached out to us. We had an open house, September 21. They said, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So council formed did the hearing, formed the ULID. Design went on 23-ish, and then we're ready now. We've put it out to bid, and here we are ready to award if you so desire tonight. And then the project will be constructed this year, probably done August, September, somewhere in that time frame. Here's where it's located. So the inset is just to show you the general idea. Way down in the lower right corner, you see a little bit of I-5 there. That's around exit 111. So then it's up in Hawkesbury-ish area. It's in the urban growth area. You'll see it's like a little peninsula that sticks down in there. That's the red. So then the bigger picture, you can see what it entails. It's served by water from the Thurston PUD, so they're not our water customers. They're on septic, obviously, right now. They would become our sewer customers through the ULID process. Okay, so what does this project entail? Installs sewer mains, about 3,200 linear feet of 8-inch diameter pipe to 47 parcels. That is the parcels in that HOA that is also now the ULID. Installs sewer laterals to an additional 9 potential connections or 5 parcels. So there are 4 duplexes, but each duplex would get its own lateral. Simply if it's separately owned, odd, but could. Or if it's owned by one person, but they're rented and they want the tenant to pay the utility fees, you just have separate accounts. So you have 2 pipes. So that's 8 of them. And then there's a house, single-family parcel up on the, what would it be, the southwest corner of Hawkesbury Road and Eagle Drive. So that one is like within the bounds. The pipe goes by it. So let's put a sewer lateral there. Project also.
We're not making them connect. We're just putting the lateral in.
We're just putting, yeah, it's up to them whether they want to connect. And they're not getting any city funds to do that, but we didn't want to cut the new road that we're putting in. It's a county road. We're building them a nice new county road. We do not want the people to say 2 years later, oh, my septic system failed. I have to cut in through the road to get on your pipe. So we're just putting the laterals in. Did I finish that one? Back up. Oh, yeah. So then we're going to abandon the septic tanks. We're going to connect the ULID parcels to sewer. And then the last thing is we're putting in 2,200 feet of water line. You say, but you just said it's the PUD's water system. Why would you do that? We have a water line up on Hawkesbury Road. We have another one just south of Ptolemy Estates. And for water connection, in order to freshen up water and maintain better pressures, having it looped makes a great deal of sense since we have a contract with a competent utility line installer. We figured let's get this one done at the same time. So that's part of what they're going to be doing. So here are the bids. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bids. One was disqualified, and Rodarte Construction of Auburn was the low bid. under the engineer's estimate at
And-
2
and
million.
Mr. Brooks,
Yes.
can I interrupt you just for a second? Because, you know, the residents that opted not to tie in really bothers me. Most of us can remember the Tanglewild East project, where it was like 9 or 10 grand if they were on the ULID, and those that didn't, when they connected later, it was like 25 grand because they don't have the toolbox that the city has with the, interest rate and being able to leverage the tools that the city has. And so this really bothers me, you know.
I guess the question, did we reach out to them and say, did you want to be a part of it? And they said no?
So they're not in the ULID, so we're putting the lateral in. We'll check one more time before the contractor gets to the point of saying, well, we're done, we're moving on, we're demobbing, and we'll see if they want to. But they're not part of the ULID, so there's no compulsion for them to do it.
Yeah, and I get that, but I mean, even with Tanglewild East, people, after the fact said, no one said anything, and now it cost me another 15 grand, and it was not the case. It's, I don't know what, this is one of the benefits of being, on these programs, and it just bothers me that, so anyways, maybe it's just another hurdle of getting the word out or what, I don't know. But anyways, I just want people to know that this is one of the benefits of being in a city program like that.
So I guess my big question, I know you're probably near the end of yours, is how are we, the city of Lacey is pledging 2 million of this. This is 2,142,000, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
We're doing some extra work here so how are we going to figure this bill out in the end on what's work that we're doing, what's work that's just going to be within the ULID, right? Because you're not going to put those 9 laterals in to that.
Okay, so the 9 laterals are coming from utility monies, right? So, I mean, if you want to provide minuscule direction, please do. But our thought was there's $2 million on the table of utility funds for water quality abatement
in the area.
So the $20,000 or whatever it's going to be to put these laterals in, it'll come out of the 2 million. That's our thought. And then, okay, that's like $500 less of city, I don't know, assistance on their assessment, right? Because it diminished it by that much. But that's, in my mind, that's pretty trivial.
I'd just like to clarify. So the 9 laterals that are not part of the LID are not part of the LID because they're not on the community septic system.
Right.
The cost to install the laterals is minimal. I mean, it runs right by there.
Sure.
And the reason we're doing that, as Pete says, is we don't want to cut a road. So it's well worth the cost to do that. The reality is we do communicate very, very well. There was nobody in Tanglewild that wasn't approached multiple times.
I agree 100%.
But the reality
Scott.
is that people whose septic system is currently working don't want to incur the cost to connect, and they don't want to incur, which includes connection fees, and they do not want to incur the monthly bill that they don't currently have. That's the reality of it. All we can do is communicate that it's a good deal now, and they make their decision.
Okay. And I guess that city manager just gave me a good point that this is just for construction costs. There's the other costs that go in the ULD, like the engineering and everything else. So we haven't figured out what that final assessment's going to be yet until this is all said and done, right? When would you figure that out?
Yes, for the preliminary ULD formation hearing, that was calculated. And with the $2 million contribution, I think the share was approximately $23,000 per parcel.
Okay.
I have a quick bid question.
Me too, real quick. We all know somebody after the fact is going to come back and say, hey, my sewer system just failed, and now I get stuck with this bill, and they didn't offer me to be on this program. And so that's my concern. I know we as a city do everything we possibly can to get the word out and try to convince people that this is a great deal.
Right, so the duplexes are not part of the HOA. They're not part of this failing large on-site system or 3 failing large on-site systems. So they aren't part of this deal, as you say. What they do have available to them through the lot program is a 50% reduction or as much as possibly a 75% reduction on their capacity development charge, the lot connection charge. That's always going to be available for them because that's a separate program for individual parcels that go from sewer from septic onto city sewer. So that's available to them.
But typically, they would be. This is a unique scenario, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah.
But in a typical scenario, it would be like Tangle Wild East, and that's where I get the rub. So sorry, I mean, it doesn't have much to do with this situation, but it does.
Yeah. Councilmember Dunning?
Yes, just for clarification for maybe future stuff, are we mandated to automatically take the lowest bid, or is there ever preferential treatment for local companies, Thurston County contractors? I just want to kind of know how that process works.
Go ahead, Scott.
Yes, state law requires us to take the lowest responsible bidder. We don't have an option. Location doesn't matter. That's state law.
Okay. I figured.
Okay, do you have anything else?
Sure.
Sure, perfect.
Okay, so staff recommendation is to approve the motion to award the contract total in the amount of $2,142,831.78 to Rodarte Construction to complete the work on this project. And does anybody have any questions?
So before we get started, my only question is, when this was first approached to this council and we decided to put in $2 million and I supported that, the one thing we did at the time was waive this community's responsibility to first come into the city before we extend services. And the reason why we said we were going to waive it is because time was the essence. We didn't have enough time. Their system was failing, right? And here we are. It's still not built yet, right? And so that just sort of it rubs me a little bit wrong where we've decided to waive that responsibility from them and didn't require them to come to the city. And all this time has gone by. It's still hasn't been built. Where it probably wouldn't have changed that requirement that much if we required them to come to the city first. And so I think before we look at these things in the future, I think that's something we need to really consider of waiving that requirement, because when is the city going to require them to come in?
It's not, how do I parse it? Before I turn it over to Scott to kind of add some more clarity in the process for this particular situation, the requirement to annex is not completely waived. So with the Council's policy on annexation, there are 4 exceptions to annexing before you connect to services. Now, one is if you're not immediately adjacent to the boundary and you can connect. If you're at one parcel and you need to connect, you can get it. And then also in the formation of ULIDs. And the theory behind that is, while it may not be something you go through that lengthy process to go through an annexation before you connect to services, because of the circumstances around those type of scenarios. However, that doesn't exempts them from providing either a power of attorney or no protest agreement to the city to annexation in the future, so that we could go back and annex it when we have the right amount of, signatures for a petition or other methods for annexation. So in this particular case, with Tommy Park Estates, the expectation is as we go through this process, they will be collecting these power of attorneys to not protest the formation of a petition for annexation. And I know that that's going to be part of this going forward. And I might be turning up, Scott, you can probably add a little bit more detail on that process.
So yes, we begin the process to collect the power of attorney forms, for the annexation waiver. Pete, could you go to that last slide that shows the map? But technically, as Rick noted, there's Resolution 1082 that in this specific circumstance, it's one of the 4 that Rick mentioned, that if there is like in the case of a septic failure, which is a health emergency, that the requirement to annex is waived, but there's still the requirement to collect the powers of attorney, which essentially go into effect when they connect. But an aerial here shows that obviously an annexation process is time-consuming for staff. And so you can see in that slide there, the green area is Lacey, the blue is the UGA, and the red is the ULID, which is currently in the UGA. So it makes most sense in terms of staff time and resources to make an attempt at an annexation for the larger area. If only the ULID were annexed, then you have that island to the south there, which then would require another process as well. But with all that said, we are collecting powers of attorney for annexation waivers. We will get all those. We'll pursue that process, but it won't occur during the ULID.
Mm-hmm. So the plan is, once you collected that you will submit this for annexation then?
Well, we'll have to get together with Vanessa and her team in terms of their resources and time.
Yeah, that's right. And do a larger annexation when we hit those numbers, that 60% threshold for that area, so we can do the annexation process in one fell swoop for the entire area versus 3 to 4 separate annexations, which if you look at the puzzle pieces up there, it could become pretty easily.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I would move to award Lacey contract number PW 2024-05 to low bidder Rodarte Construction, Inc. from Auburn, Washington, in the amount of $2,142,831.78.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Next, we have Trent Lougheed coming up, who's a project manager in our Water Resource Department. He's going to provide an overview of the Madrona West Side pH treatment project and bid award.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. And like Rick had said, that my name is Trent Lougheed. I'm a utility engineer with the Water Resources Department. Since this is the first time I'm here, I just thought, I've been here basically 2 years, and so we will get going on the Madrona and West Side pH treatment project. This is a recommendation to award. We opened bids on March 5th, 2023, or 4, sorry, excuse me. We did have 4 bids. The low bidder was Pacific Civil and Infrastructure with a bid of $14,429,205.60. You have a bid summary in your agenda packet, and it shows that basically the range from high bid to low bid was about $2 million. The highest bid was, I think, $16.5 million. And as you can see, the engineer's estimate was just under $18.4 million. This project will take about 500 working days, which is just about 2 years. And we plan on beginning work, assuming that we award the project tonight, sometime in May of this year. Excuse me. So the highlights of this project are, these are going to be the second and third aeration units for pH treatment within the city. The first one, which you have awarded previously, which is under construction now, is the Beechcrest excuse me, aeration unit. And included with this aeration installation, we're going to have new treatment buildings at both sites, installation of new standby generators, some water lines, providing electrical, telemetry, instrumentation, and control upgrades, and installing landscaping and related site improvements. And I'll show you a schematic here at the end that just kind of demonstrates on how the system functions. This project is mandated by the Washington State Department of Health as part of the city's corrosion control study update. So these units will increase the pH at these 2 well sites, and so it doesn't, so to basically prevent corrosion of water pipes for lead and copper. The city did apply for a $10 million Public Works Board loan in July of last year, 2023. I think it was about beginning of November, we received a notice of award from the Public Works Board for this loan, and since then, we have executed the loan documents. It is a pretty favorable loan. It's a 20-year term with a 1.72% interest rate, and if we get the project constructed within 5 years, we can opt to get a 5.5% reduction, so it could actually get even lower than what we're showing here. So I'm not, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with this system yet. I'm not sure if this has a pointer on it, but what I'll do is basically that first project that I mentioned before is the Beach Crest project that's kind of up in the northeast corner of this map. The Madrona site is off of Pacific or 510, just up on Millbank in the Madrona area. And then the west side wells are in the 3300 block of College Street, which is just south of 31st. And the Madrona well field is the city's highest producing wells with a total water right capacity of about 4,800 gallons per minute. And the west side site contains the city's oldest wells with a total combined water capacity of, I think it's just under 1,500 gallons per minute. So what these systems do and how they function is you can see on the left side of the exhibit here, it shows blue water pipes with arrows indicating direction of flow, and those are coming from the 3 different wells at the Madrona site. This is the Madrona one. I didn't prepare, the west side is pretty much the same. And so the water is pumped from the wells into these aeration tanks, and the green boxes on the left are the blower pumps. And so those pumps will blow air through the aeration facility, which produces the oxygenation. Yeah, that word. For the pH treatment. And then there's some vent piping that comes out and then blows the air outside of the building. From those aeration tanks, you'll see the pink boxes that are just to the right of the aeration tanks. Those are the booster pumps that'll pump the water, the treated water, out into the system. And I know you can't really see them, but on the right side of the up-down water pipe, there's a bunch of little solenoid valves, and those control where the water flows after the treatment. So if the 400 pressure zone calls for water, the certain valves will close, certain ones will open, and then the water will be pumped out through to the 400 pressure zone. And if the 337 pressure zone does, the valves open and close, so it pushes it out into the 337 pressure zone, and then there'll be some times where both will call for water, and then all the valves will open, and it'll just go to wherever the demand is needed. So with that, we are recommending awarding the project to Pacific Civil Infrastructure from Tacoma in the amount of $14,429,205.60. And so with that, if anybody has any questions.
Can I get a motion?
Sure, I would move to award Lacey contract number PW 2022-37 to low bidder Pacific Civil and Infrastructure from Tacoma in the amount of $14,429,205.60.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Councilmember?
So the fact that we got that loan with such a great interest rate and an opportunity for it to be even better is wonderful. I'm curious if that was built into our budget for this year, and if it is, if we were assuming we had that money because we knew we got it in November, where does the remaining $4 million-ish come from?
Yeah, the budget contemplates all of that, so it does include the revenue source in terms of the reimbursements on the loan, and the remainder is coming out of just normal rates. So yeah, this was contemplated by the budget.
And we feel pretty confident we're going to get this completed and then get the even lower interest rate?
Well, we haven't budgeted the debt payments yet. You know, that'll come after we actually take the loan and get the proceeds from the loan. So, but yeah, we'll obviously adjust the budget accordingly as we know the final rates and the annual debt payments.
Great.
So approved but not funded yet.
I'm sorry.
Approved but not funded.
Correct. Yeah, we haven't even taken a draw yet, so.
Okay. There's been a motion and second to go to the low bidder for the Madrona and Westside pH treatment projects. All in favor of that motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Then that motion unanimously carries.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And originally, we did have one other item on the city manager report tonight. It was the 2023 public safety update, but we have rescheduled that to next week's work session. So if anybody out in the public would like to hear that update, please tune in next week to the work session. And that concludes the city manager report.
Then I'll go on to boards, commission, and committee reports. I actually don't have a report. I did have a mayor's forum last Friday out at Yelm. It was great to see all the mayors, but there's really nothing to report from that meeting. So next up is deputy mayor.
I do not have a report either. JASCOM got canceled, and we're looking to reschedule.
Councilmember Greenstein.
Just one really short report. TCOM Communications met on the 6th of March. I was reelected as chair. Leata Delhoff from Tumwater was reelected as vice chair. We recognized our employee of the year, Andrea Gould, reviewed the 2023 annual report, and discussed the new phone system replacement that should be coming up here very shortly. And that is my report.
Councilmember Stedman.
No report.
And Councilmember Cox.
Highlights are, thanks, that we received an overview of the budgeting process that we're moving into as we work toward adopting a 2-year budget later this year. It's really nice that we get a 2-year budget. I think it makes things more predictable. Under Lott's Public Health Emergency Support Program, we approved City of Olympia's application for funding of portable toilets located at homeless encampments, and this is to reduce public health and environmental risks. We approved a resolution celebrating former board president Lisa Parsley from City of Olympia's City Council for her service. She has been chair for the last several years of the board. And finally, we received information on Lott's pre-treatment program, which works closely with city and county staff to meet the Department of Ecology's requirement of managing industrial discharges to the sewer system. And then Intercity Transit met on March 6th. Fairly business-like meeting. We authorized the general manager to execute an amendment of our legal services contract with Law, Lyman, Daniel, Kamirer, and Bogdanovich to adjust the hourly rate and extend the term of the agreement through March 31st, 2025. We also authorized the general manager to proceed with Intour Consulting to provide guidance, recommendations, technical expertise, and supporting documentation needed to procure a viable enterprise resource planning and enterprise transit management software solution not to exceed the amount of $369,900. This software will integrate with FleetNet software that Intercity Transit implemented in 1993. It's transit-specific, and it's a solution for managing accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger, just basically the business of Intercity Transit, as well as fleet maintenance and the like. We also authorized this company, Intour, to conduct a broad, unbiased analysis of Intercity Transit's workflow and software support that underpins everyday operations. This analysis has concluded, and the recommendation is that we acquire these new solutions that will reduce manual data management, streamline processes, and provide a modern software platform. And finally, we approved proposed changes to the Intercity Transit's Community Advisory Committee bylaws. And one other thing, there is lots of progress happening at the Olympia Transit Center. People who've driven past it may have noticed a lot of construction around the sidewalks and stuff. And so this project is updating sidewalks and ramps and replacing areas on the main bus platform to reduce potential trip hazards and enhance pedestrian accessibility around that site. And that's my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Vasquez.
I have one report. The Board of Health met last Tuesday, and we updated the proclamation schedule. There was a lot of review and discussion because we have newer board members who haven't been through this sort of thing before. We began approving parts of our 2-year strategic plan, including mission and vision statements. We got a hiring update because the board had approved funding or made a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for approved funding for additional positions. I think we added 22 positions to Public Health and Social Services, so significant increase in staff positions. And they've already hired or are close to making offers for about 14 or 15 of those positions. So they've made a lot of progress. Those positions were approved in December, and they're already well on their way to getting those positions filled. I just wanted to share the vision and mission statements for the Board of Health because they're hot off the presses, and I think they're quite nice. The vision statement for the Thurston County Board of Health is all people empowered to lead healthy lives. And the mission of the Board of Health is supporting our community by optimizing equitable access to health systems, resources, services, and partnerships through data, policy, and education for generations to come. So those are significantly improved from what they were before. It had been a while since those things had gotten updated. We also, as part of the 2-year strategic plan, are putting together a work plan, which is something the Board of Health has not had before. So like we're taking steps up in sophistication for the Board of Health by having a sort of plan and seasons for the things that we work on, review the budget when we know how much money we're getting and review certain policies when we know they're due for updates. So Jennifer Freiheit from the county has been extremely helpful in guiding us through that process. We also talked about the passage of Senate Bill 5970, which allows for counties to change the size of their boards of health. So we talked a little bit about that because when the commission grew from 3 to 5, the Board of Health also had to grow because all 5 of the commissioners were automatically assigned to the Board of Health. With the passage of that law, we don't have to have all 5 of the county commissioners on the board, but the legislation still calls for a balance between members of the public and commissioners. So if we want to take action in the future to reduce the number of county commissioners on the Board of Health, it means we also need to reduce the number of members of the public who are represented. So I don't know that we want to bounce off anybody that we just appointed, so that may be something we look at in a couple of years so that people have a chance to serve their terms.
Oh, interesting.
The only other thing to report is that the Thurston Climate Mitigation Collaborative has a retreat scheduled for April 15th. So more to come on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunning.
I don't have anything to report, but I did just want to give some accolades. After going to NLC, it really shows how much work and effort our city staff, our city leaders, this council, both past and present, has put into making Lacey a leading city. How far we are ahead of other cities that we can actually give them guidance. Me, just a couple months in to this role, was giving guidance to cities. And it just shows how much effort and work, and I know every day we might not recognize how much work goes into making things run smoothly and helping our city grow and providing services. But sometimes when you see the struggles of others, it makes you really appreciative of what you have, and that was one of those instances for me. So I just want to really thank you guys for all the work that you have put in over the years and how much you guys care about our city.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate you guys coming. The city manager and Councilmember Dunning, we're both at the NLC conference, and I appreciate you guys both being there. And it's always, and we obviously got to meet with our federal delegation and talk about some big priorities that we have in the city of Lacey. But they really do appreciate you guys coming to that. With that, we have reached the end of our agenda. Hope everyone has a safe night, and I will call this meeting adjourned without objection. And as always, you keep it classy, Lacey.